Am I losing my mind? Am I wasting my time? Do I know who I am? I don't know who I am. Can I say I'm the man? I don't know, I don't know, I don't know, I don't know, I don't know who I am.
So confused in this life full of mystery. Guess I'm glad it ain't a life full of misery. I wanna dance, I wanna fly, I wanna let it free. But that's a different side of people they don't wanna see. I've been caught up in my mind sometimes, so I rhyme just to feel alright. And when the rhyming did good, that's when I just understood it was by design. And when I feel this way, I just walk and talk to appear this way, baby. I don't know what to say, baby. I don't know what I am, baby. That's just how I play, baby. Yeah.
I don't know who I am. Can I say I'm the man? Am I losing my mind? Am I wasting my time? Do I know who I am?
Powered by Riverside FM.
What's up, UP Nation? Welcome to another episode of Unconventional Playbook. If you like the content, hit that like and subscribe button. Brian Flores and Tua Tagovailoa have been in the news the last 24 hours a lot. And it's coming from Tua Tagovailoa, who was on the Dan Le Batard show. And I believe Dan Le Batard asked him to compare his current head coach to what he had with Brian Flores. And Tua had some strong comments about Brian Flores. I'm not going to rehash every word that he said, but he basically said he was coached really hard by Brian Flores, and that Brian Flores made him lose confidence, telling him, not to blow it in certain games, and that he wasn't good enough, and that he was a bad football player. And he basically said that Brian Flores was a bad person. I wanted to get on Unconventional Playbook and talk about this because coaching is my profession. And I've been coaching for many years. I've basically been coaching ever since I was in high school, all the way up to now. I'm 51 years old. So the amount of players that I've had the opportunity to coach is a lot. And, when you coach as long as I have, I've coached on the male side of things and I've coached on the female side of things. You're going to have, just because of the law of averages, you're going to have people that like you, and you're going to have people that don't like you. You're going to have players that think you are the best coach in the world, and then you're going to have players that think you're one of the worst coaches in the world. And it's an interesting dynamic, and I think a lot of people that have never grown up in coaching or have never been on the sidelines or have never been on the football field, they don't really understand the dynamic of coaching. I had the opportunity to watch Get Up this morning, and they were talking about the whole Tua Brian Flores thing, and they had a bunch of reporters on there, and they had former NFL football players, and basically, I'm not going to go as far as to say they were taking sides, but they were saying that if this situation occurred the way Tua said it occurred, that Brian Flores needs to check himself, and all this and all that, blah 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 blah. Here's what I'll tell you about coaching. When it comes down to coaching and player relationships, unless you're doing some things underhanded or inappropriate as a coach, more times than not, it comes down to, is the player getting what he or she wants to get? And if he or she isn't getting what they want to get, odds are you're going to be a bad coach. Odds are you're going to be a bad coach. So I think I'm not going to try to go back into the Dallas Cowboys practices in the year where Brian Flores and Tua Tagovailoa were playing together, because I have no basis. I wasn't there. I have no right to examine and analyze that whole relationship because I wasn't there. And the most important thing is that Tua Tagovailoa felt a certain way, especially the way Brian Flores coached him. And that's the most important thing. It doesn't matter whether Brian Flores was hard on him or whether Brian Flores was soft on him. Tua Tagovailoa felt a certain way. And this came out through comments during the Dan Le Batard show. Now, the one thing that I would say is that Brian Flores has coached a lot of players. And there are many players that love Brian Flores. If you watched Brian Flores' press conference today, you could tell that the comments that Tua made really hurt this man. You could see it in the press conference. And I thought it was really telling that two of the Minnesota Viking football players, Josh Metellus and Harrison Phillips, came up to support him. And he kind of shooed them away. But I thought that was really telling. And I thought it was really telling that KOC came to his defense yesterday and basically said he has great relationships here. And I believe, I don't know this to be a fact, but I believe that Brian Flores probably has way more better relationships than he has relationships that are bad. And I'm also willing to guess that it's probably a 90-10 split. 90 being great relationships with players, him getting the best out of players. And there's about 10% that probably don't like him and doesn't like his coaching style. And I would say it is very hard to have all of your players that you coach during the course of your career like you and support you. There's so many variables that go into coaching. And the only part of this that I have a hard time with, say Brian Flores is a bad coach. Say Brian Flores coached me hard. I didn't like his coaching style. He's not for me. I'm doing better under Coach Daniels. I am willing to accept that. But here's where I think Tua crossed the line in saying that Brian Flores is a bad person. He's a bad person because he's not telling you what you want to hear. He's a bad person because he's not giving you what you want. He's a bad person because he's calling out your flaws. He's a bad person because you feel like he's not lifting you up every day. That makes him a bad person. What he's doing on the football field and in practices when it comes to football, X's and O's, if he comes up short there and how he relates to you and speaks to you, that makes him a bad person. Man, that's a wide net to try to throw on somebody. That's a harsh criticism, harsh thing to say, in my opinion. I love the fact that the Minnesota Viking players came out and supported Brian Flores today. And people will say, well, he's coaching them now. I'm sure there's going to be some stories later on when he leaves the Vikings and move on that probably some players didn't like him. There are probably some players in the locker room right now that don't like Brian Flores. It's just a law of averages. It's just what happens when you coach. But here's the thing that I would say to Tua Tagovailoa. Brian Flores is no longer the head coach of the Miami Dolphins. Sorry, I couldn't speak. I'm so passionate about this subject because I've been coaching for a long time. Brian Flores is no longer the head coach of the Miami Dolphins. He's the defensive coordinator of the Minnesota Vikings. So you don't have to deal with Brian Flores anymore. B-Flow. Essentially, you love your new coach, and you got the coach that you want. So you don't have to deal with Brian Flores anymore. You also got extended by the Miami Dolphins. They gave you the bag. You've got the bag. Since Brian Flores has left, you have flourished under your new coach. You've also flourished because you got a couple of new weapons, the wide receiver position that you didn't have when Brian Flores was there. You know, I love these situations where coaches and quarterbacks get killed when their organizations really don't do what they need to do to help them out, like the Chicago Bears situation. You got Justin Fields, who went to work every day there. And yeah, he came up short, didn't play well all the time, but can you honestly say that the Chicago Bears did what they needed to do to put weapons around him? All of a sudden, Caleb Williams shows up, and they're breaking their backs, falling over themselves to try to give this guy's weapons. Of course, Caleb Williams is going to play better. You didn't have that same zest when Justin Fields was there. That's fair. Regardless of whether you think Caleb Williams is better than Justin Fields is better than Caleb Williams, the fact is that Caleb Williams is stepping into a better situation that Justin Fields ever had for the Chicago Bears. That's fact. That's fact. So now, Tua, you've got your coach, you've got your extension. You've got your toys. And you don't have to worry about B-Flow anymore. The negative environment that B-Flow had around you at the time you were there, according to your words on the Dan Le Batard show, you don't have to deal with that anymore. You don't have to deal with that anymore. You got everything that you want. You've got everything that you need to be able to succeed. Ball's in your court now, Tua. Let's see. You got everything that you want. The boogeyman is gone. The genius is on the sidelines coaching you. You got weapons. You are, in most circles, considered a playoff team. You come from school with the rich tradition, Alabama. Okay, Tua. Let's see what you got. Let's see how this plays out. Let's see what you can do now, since the environment and the coaching is a lot better. You've got an organization that has put a lot of confidence in you. They've invested in you in the form of an extension, long-term contract, giving you the bag. Now, there is no more excuses. There is none. You've got everything you need to succeed. Tua, let's see what you got. Let's see how this plays out. Because now, if you are who you say you are, and you've got the environment where you can flourish, and you've got the head coach that believes in you and that supports you, and you got the weapons, you got a good defense on the other side of the ball. You play in South Beach. Great location. Man, everything's going well for you. Let's see. Let's see what you got. Let's see what you got. See, I don't like players that make a lot of excuses. And they can't self-reflect on their part of things. See, this is Unconventional Playbook. I'm gonna give it to you straight. And I'm really passionate when it comes to coaching, because I know the hard work that most coaches puts in. It's a grind. It's a grind. It's about player management. And depending on the amount of players that you have on your specific team with your specific sport, it's hard to manage all your players and make everyone as happy as they can be. And Tua goes as far as saying, because maybe Brian Flores fell a little bit short with him, that he's a bad person. Not a bad coach. He said person. That's another level. That's another level to this thing when you say bad person. So much so that when you saw Brian Flores at the presser today, bit tough Brian Flores, the guy who creates these hellfire defenses, he was a little different today. The comments hurt his soul today. You could see it. You could feel it. If you haven't seen the presser, go watch it on YouTube. And look at Brian Flores other days compared to today. And even in the midst of all of that, he was first class, in my opinion, saying, well, I'm going to try to grow from this. I've been self-reflecting over the past couple of days. I'm going to try to grow from this, and I'm going to work towards no one ever saying this about me again. Here's what Brian Flores doesn't realize. You can change your style of coaching, and I guarantee you, maybe not with the same sort of verbiage, there's going to be another Tua Tagovailoa that's going to criticize and not like it. It's the nature of the beast in coaching. It's the nature of the beast in coaching. Some of the coaches that we hold up as being on the Mount Rushmore of coaching has players that dislike him. Coach Krzyzewski, Nick Saban, Bill Belichick, you name it. There are players that think they're the worst coaches in the world. It's just not verbalized on the Dan Le Batard show. You can book that. You can book it. And for the most part, it comes down to maybe some things that were said, playing time, or those players that think they are great not being talked to the way they want to be talked to in terms of letting them know every second of the day how great they are. And see, what I love is for these negative entities that these players target to be removed from the situation where you don't have to deal with them anymore. Just like with Tua and Brian Flores. He doesn't have to deal with Brian Flores anymore. Brian Flores, defense coordinator of Minnesota Vikings. Okay, Tua, he's gone. Let's see your greatness now. Because you hold yourself up as being this great quarterback. When you're going through your contract negotiations, you won't take a penny less than what you thought you were worth. Now you got your bag. Let's see what you got. I'm not hating on Tua. I wish him the best. I would love to see him succeed. But here's the key. I want to see him succeed. Everything is weighted towards your success now. You were empowered enough on the Dan Le Batard show to say what you said about B-Flow, Brian Flores. And listen, man, I admit, maybe I'm a little biased. I love Brian Flores. I'm glad he's a part of the Minnesota Vikings organization. So it's very easy for me to come to his defense. And again, I'm not coming to the defense of what he said or what he did in the past was right or wrong. I mean, I wasn't there. I can just go by what the media shows us and what Tua Tagovailoa says and what Brian Flores says. That's all I have to go by. I wasn't there. But I thought what was a little strong is that Tua said he's a bad person. So now the bad person is gone. Ball's in your court. Now, Tua, you have every advantage now to be successful in Miami. Let's see how this thing turns out, man. Let's see how it turns out. UP Nation, I can't wait to see how this thing turns out for the next few years with Tua Tagovailoa, because he's telling you he's that guy. And the only reason why he couldn't flourish early in his career was basically because of Brian Flores and the environment that he created, and he's a bad person. Knowing that saying things like this would probably prevent him from getting another head coaching opportunity, because player-coach relationships are important. And I've been in this business long enough to know you can't make everybody happy. No matter if your approach is the same for all of your players from year to year, what's good for one player is not good from another player. Some of the best coaches that you hold in high regard have players that think they're a bunch of crap. It happens. It's the nature of the beast. And I'm here not to defend the words of Brian Flores or his actions when he was coaching, but I'm going to stand up for a guy that I don't think is a bad person, because Tua didn't like the environment or didn't get what he wanted. Now, all of that's removed. Let's see what you got, Tua Tagovailoa. This has been Unconventional Playbook. I had to get on and talk about this because I'm passionate about coaching, and I know how hard it is. It's tough, man. It's tough. And I hate to see people that have never been on the sidelines coaching anything go out and give their analysis on stuff when you haven't coached. You haven't been there. You don't know how hard it is. You don't know how sometimes situations get skewed a little bit from players. Coaching is difficult. Even for some of the greats, it's difficult. And if you don't have the training, you don't have the foundation, you don't have the background, you're going to struggle. J.J. Redick, the new coach of the Los Angeles Lakers, is going to find that out. J.J. Redick is probably one of the smartest guys on the planet. He's good with X's and O's, knows the game, but can he manage people? Can he manage people? If you don't have that foundation, man, it's going to eat you up. And even if you do the right things, you're going to have that player that's going to think that whatever you do or say, if they're not getting what they want, you're not a good coach. And some may say you're not a good person. For those players that criticize a situation and then leave a situation and have their chance to do their thing, I say, come with it. And this is my message to Tua Tagovailoa. The ball is in your court. And I say again, let's see what you got. This has been Unconventional Playbook. Latrey, take us home.
I don't know who I am. Can I say I'm the man? Am I losing my mind? Am I wasting my time? Do I know who I am? I don't know who I